Hi guys, welcome to a new video. In today's video we're going to be discussing margin, how I use margin, my thoughts upon, applying margin to trading, and basically the good and the bad. So margin is basically the equity or the amount of money that your brokerage will give you to put towards trade. So for example, if a brokerage like Shore Trader has a 6-to-1 margin and you have $500 in your account, you can basically trade with $3,000. So this is how I want to basically approach this kind of video. So let me just so the way I approach margin, the way I look at it, it's really not oxymoronic, it's really paradoxical, because it's kind of counterintuitive. It's weird because by using margin I can trade less riskier with the margin instead of not using the margin. So for example, this is why it sounds very counterintuitive. How you're using margin, which is risky, but you're using it in a way that is less risky. How does that make sense? And can you explain that? So basically, what I mean is, let's take, for example, let's say we have person A and person B and person B. So person A has $500 in their account, okay, and person B has $500, but with no margin, okay. So on here I'm going to write margin. So person A is going to be using margin, okay, and the margin is going to be 6 times. So if I write a 6 here, so this is going to equals the $500 times the 6 margin that they're allowed to use. So now they have $3,000, and person B still has 500. Okay, so now we're going to let's assume this person buys 100% of its buying power. It's quite risky. I wouldn't do that personally, but let's just hypothetically, let's just say the person goes 100% in on this trade. Okay, so let's say the person wants to take 1% on this trade. So he wants to make 1% profit on this trade. So 1%, okay, of 3,000 is obviously basically 1% times 3,000 is $30. Okay, now 1%, let's just make sure this is in a general. So let's do, so equals 1% times 500. So this is the difference. So using margin, so basically on here this would be, so if this is 6%, okay, so equals 3,000. I'm just going to show you because this will make it a lot easier. Okay, that's on percentage. Okay, and then if we go on equals, so 6% times 500, which is 30. These can be in dollars, so if we convert this to currency, and if we go to United States. So what we have here is we have person A and person B. Person A is using $500, but his margin allowance is 6-to-1, so he can or she can use $3,000 on a trade. Okay, that a 1% gain would give that person $30 profit. Now, this is where it's interesting. This is where I stress the less riskier approach to trading. Now, for person B to get a $30 gain, person B is going to need to have a 6% gain. So in a sense, it's 6 times riskier, but it's 6 times less riskier because you're using the margin, but you aren't having to wait for the stock to go up 6 times higher. So you can be happy with a 1% gain by using the margin and get out quicker, therefore less riskier, and not having to wait for the trade, and not having to wait for it to go up 5, 6, 7%. Now, obviously, if the trade doesn't work out, you can just cancel it straight away and you don't have to worry. And obviously, if this trade goes, if the trade falls down in value and crashes, so to speak, then with the margin you are going to be down £30 or $30. But if you don't use the margin, you're only going to be down $5. But you've got to, the way I look at it, if I'm entering a trade, I believe that trade is going to be successful. Although there's obviously that trade doesn't have to be successful, but what I'm trying to say is every trade that I go into, I'm having such conviction that the trade's going to work. The analysis that you have to do for the trade to work, or to have belief in the trade, you are saying in your head, by putting on a trade, you are saying, I trust this trade. I think this trade is going to do this, therefore I'm going to put this amount on this trade. So if you're already going to put on some, amount of money, why wouldn't you use a little bit more just to back that trade up? Yes, it's more risky, but you've got to look at, I can be happy with a 1% gain instead of a 6%. And likewise here, so if the trade does work out and you make 6% and you only use $500, yeah, you made $30, which is cool, but you could have made 180 with that margin. Now, yes, it's more risky, but do you know what I'm trying to say? You don't have to. You can put on, like here, you can put very short stop losses. So, for example, you can enter a trade, let's say $4, okay, and you say I'm going to risk 2%, okay, but I want to make 6%, okay, or let's say I'm going to try and make 5%, which will be a 2.5 to 1 profit loss ratio, or yeah, profit loss ratio. So you risk 2% to gain 5%. So in other words, you are risking $80 to make $200, which is quite a good trade. I mean, even if you go 2 to 1, a 2 to 1 would be, just as good. Well, it would be as good. Obviously, the 2.5 to 1 is better, but those sort of trades, 2 to 1 and 2.5 to 1, are the trades you want to be making. So you risk 80 to make 160. Okay, that sounds pretty good. So margin can be your friend if used correctly. Now, it can go against you. Like I say, this little example here, person A and person B, if you trade with $500 and the trade does go against you, then you only lose $5 on 1%, which is a lot better than losing $30, because $30 on a $500 account is nearly 10%. It's 6% of your account. So it can be riskier, and I don't want to come across and say and pretend that I don't know how risky it is, because it is risky. But what my main message is, for me to put on a trade, I am putting so much effort into believing this trade is going to be good. It's not like I just go into a trade. So, for example, the trade has to meet so much criteria: the volume, the float, the setup, the actual chart itself, the amount of shares traded, the price, the risk to reward. Everything has to be right. So in order for me to put on a trade, there's about 15 boxes that must be ticked, all mentally. So in other words, for it to get to that stage where I'm entering that trade, it's already surpassed all the ticks. And if it has, then let's use a bit of margin. Even if we only use 3 to 1 or 4 to 1, you don't have to utilize the whole amount. This was just a hypothetical example, but I'm just using 6 to 1 because SureTrader uses a 6 to 1 margin. I mean, you could just put 5 to 1 here, use 5 to 1, okay? So now you have $2,500 with a $500 account. 1% is $25, 6% is $150. Now, if you don't use margin and just use $500, the risk is less, but the return is less. So it works, it works alongside each other. Yes, the risk is not as bad, but the gain isn't as good. The gain for a 6% is only $30, where you could have had 150. And now I know all this is, very not really abstract, but I know it's very, it's very easy to say this in an Excel sheet, but I'm just trying to put things into perspective and kind of show you guys my way of thinking. So I wouldn't always utilize 100% of the margin. I feel like I have some experience with margin, but I would never. For me to put on a trade takes a lot of analysis in order for me to actually execute a trade. I can't just enter a trade. Like I said before, there has to be so much criteria checked before I enter the trade. So if I do, maybe I'll use some margin. Like I say, if you really want to put things into perspective, and some brokerages use a 20% margin. So if you've got a $500 account and you're using 20 to 1 margin, then you're going to have 20 times more profits, but you are also going to have 20 times less profits. So, for example, if the stock goes 1% against you, you're down $100, whereas you could have only been down $5. But if the stock goes in your favor, you would only be up $5, but you could be up 100. So it's all relative. You know, all it is times in your starting amount by your margin. And if you don't use any margin, then there's not really much to work out other than 1% of your starting amount. You start with 1,000. 1% of 1,000, just to show you, is obviously $10. So just change this. Equals 1% times 1,000 is $10. And likewise here, 1% times 1,000 would be 60. My bad. 1% times 60. So $60. So it's all relative. It just, you know, it depends how much research you have done, how experienced you are. I mean, experience is a loose word. I mean, you've got to have some experience, but you can't just I recommend using margin in a demo account and using margin. I like to buy 1,000 shares. So when you buy 1,000 shares, every 1 cent is let's show you. Every 1 cent is basically $10 profit. So if I buy in at $10 and I sell at $10.10, that's a 1% gain. So if we make things easier and just put it over here, 1,000 shares. So 1,000 shares brought at the price of $10 is $10,000. Okay, that stock goes up by 10 cents. That gives you $100 profit per trade. Now if we put this down to $1, okay, so you can see here every cent gained on the price is 1%. So 1,000 shares makes it easy because every cent is a $10 gain. Likewise, if you do a 500 shares, every 2 cents will be $10, as you can see here. So so let me just change this to 2. Yeah, so every 2 cents will be $10 gained. Okay, so like we say here, a 10 cent increment or incremental change would give you $100, and this is only $1,000 amount. Like I said before, when this was $10, this would be a 10,000 pound position. 1,000 shares, each 10 cents is a percentage, 1%, and obviously $100 per trade. So if you were trading with a $3,000 account, you can quite simply, oh sorry, actually I shouldn't have changed that. Let's just change this. So you can see here, so 1,000 shares, you buy in at $3, you want a 1% gain, you sell at $3.03, that's a $30 profit. It's quite easy, just 1% of 3,000, obviously that's, you know, $30. And then you can see here, I just want to show you guys so you can see that this is why I use 1,000 shares as my buying amount, or I have been recently. It just makes it easier to add up. So for example, on £5, every 5 cents is basically $50. So you just basically times the 5 cent increment by the number of shares, and then you get your profit per trade. So that's quite a good way of looking at it. And then over here we got the stop loss. So obviously 1% of $5 is 5 cents, minus 5 cents from $5 is $4.95. So I already know where my stop loss is going to be, but this is only giving me the stop loss for 1%. So basically, if I'm willing to make 4%, I'll be willing to risk 2%, which is this column here. Okay, so 2% I would be risking. I would set my stop loss for $4.90, but I would have my target price for $5.20. Okay, so I think that's going to be the end of the video. I just wanted to kind of touch on margin and how I use margin and kind of my philosophy upon using margin. And I think it's all relative. Like I said before, you need to I use it in a way that makes me trade less riskier, because if the trade works out, I don't have to wait. I can just get in and get out very quickly. I only have to get a couple percentage gain, and then I can get out. The margin goes straight back to the broker, and I get the profit. That's one thing I haven't spoken about. So for example, if you do utilize, let's change this back to 6. So if you do utilize a 6-to-1 margin and you have $3,000 and you make $180, that $180 goes onto your account. Okay, so now this is your account balance equals 500 plus the profit here is 680. Okay, so that's a large, that's a huge increase on a $500 account. Whereas if you did that in this account here, it would only give you an extra $30, so you'd be up 530. And another cool thing is when you're using 6-to-1 margin, so 100% for your account to double in size, you would think, okay, it has to go up by 100%. But no, it doesn't. It only has to go up by 16% and you have doubled your account. By using 6-to-1 margin, your account, you only need to get a stock that goes up 16% in order for you to double your account. So if you have the 100 here, which indicates the percentage gain, and then we have 6 here, if you equals 6 divided by 100, 100 divided by 6, that is 16.6. So basically, every time you're in your position or your account goes up by 16.666, you have doubled your account if you use 6-to-1 margin. So for example, if we got into a trade using margin and our account the stock went up to 16.6%, this here will now change to $500, which basically means you've doubled your account without having the stock to go up to 100%. So you can see the comparison here. A 17% incremental change or increase in value in the stock doubles your account, whereas without the margin your account would only go up by $83, but it could have gone up by $498, which is exactly what happened actually on my second day of day trading. I doubled my account because I had a 17% increase. So you don't need a 100% increase to double your account when you use 6-to-1 margin, mainly because there's obviously 6 17s in 100%, or 16.66. So I hope that's been quite informative. Like I say, if you've enjoyed the video, give it a thumbs up. If you've got any questions, related to risk management or anything to do with trading, leave them in the comment section below. Make sure you check out the description. I've also got some really good links in there, probably about 15 to 20 good links, websites I use and social media and whatnot. And also, if you could hit that subscribe button, I'm trying to get up to my first 1,000 subscribers. So I'll be very appreciative if you could do that. So thank you for watching, and I will see you guys in the next video.